Welcome to the Magnum Report. I'm your host, Mark Magnum, and today my topic is going to be the rise of Dominik Mysterio. Now, before I get started, I would like to say please like, subscribe, share, make sure you comment in the comment section, and also hit that notification icon so you don't miss out on new content. Now let's get right into it. Dominik Mysterio was first seen on WWE television back in 2003 after Rey Mysterio defeated Matt Hardy for the Cruiserweight title after the show was getting ready to go off the air. You had Rey Mysterio celebrating with his son. I believe it was in San Diego or Anaheim, somewhere in California, so they were close to home. So it made sense that Dominik made an appearance on that show. He was a little kid back then, a little small little dude back then, so it was just cool to just see Rey celebrate with his son as a guy that's wrestled in this business and had that opportunity to celebrate winning a championship with my daughter, my middle daughter. It is a fun experience. I mean, it is all a work, but it's nice to just bring your family in to that part of your life. So it's an awesome experience. Then he had his second appearance back in 2005 at the infamous SummerSlam for the custody of Dominik Mysterio, where Rey Mysterio, his father, went against Eddie Guerrero, who was claiming he was Dominik's father. That was a great storyline, and it was infamous. Sadly, though, with that, Eddie Guerrero passed away just a couple months after this match, so it's just sad, and I like to say rest in peace to Eddie Guerrero on that, because he was one of the few wrestlers that when he passed away kind of made me shed a tear, because he was one of those guys I definitely enjoyed watching. But with this whole Dominik Mysterio angle and the whole storyline, and you know, Eddie possibly being his father, and just the way they did that, I mean, it was a little bit over the top, but the match delivered, and just the way that, you know, Dominik kind of got involved to make sure that Eddie Guerrero didn't win that match. It was just a nice added touch to that match. So it was good stuff there. Then after that, Dominik Mysterio made an appearance in 2010, and this was a segment that they did with the Straight Edge Society. It was the Mysterio family in ring, and they were celebrating. And then, you know, they had it to where CM Punk comes down, Straight Edge Society comes down, and we have this kind of situation where CM Punk sings happy birthday to Dominik Mysterio. It was in April, and Dominik Mysterio's birthday is in April. So it was kind of an homage to that, but it was kind of creepy the way that CM Punk did it. So it was just one of those things that when you look back on it and you think of the start of Dominik Mysterio, he had several appearances, even stuff that I haven't talked about here, stuff backstage and other things that before he actually became an in-ring competitor, he was already on WWE television. So it's definitely, he had his starting point already. But into the next thing that I want to talk about, and we fast forward into 2019, and now Dominik has actually become an in-ring competitor, and he's teaming with his father as a tag team. And my main thing for this whole tag run with him and his father was that he had no character. He had no real personality, no identity, nothing that really defined him other than he was Rey Mysterio's son. With a lot of wrestlers in professional wrestling, a lot of them do lean on their lineage, as they should, but a lot of them have more depth, more, you know, more progression, more character development when they first come in. And there's some guys, you know, like a Curtis Axel, like a Ted DiBiase Jr., where you try to just kind of mold them in a way where it's like, hey, this is dude's father and this is his son, so we're going to push this guy because of that, but we have no real character other than the fact this is his son. And that's kind of the thing that Dominik Mysterio fell under, is for the couple years that him and his father were a tag team, it was definitely not a good thing for Dominik, I feel, just for the sheer fact that, like I said, he had no identity. He had no character. He had nothing other than, I'm Rey Mysterio's son. And then we go from that into the pandemic. And I think this hurt him in a lot of different ways, because he went from wrestling at first in 2019 in front of fans, then the pandemic happens and it's no fans. And it's kind of like, you know, a comedian doing stand-up comedy with no crowd, but you throw a laugh track in there to where you don't know if your jokes are landing. You don't know if they're good jokes, they're funny jokes, they're bad jokes, they're what, because they're throwing a laugh track out there. So you don't know if your jokes are hitting or not. And this was the same situation for Dominik Mysterio. he was doing moves and having matches, and I don't think he's a bad wrestler. He still was greener than green is green, greener than my microphone, but he was still learning. He was in that process, and when you start off with the crowd and you're starting, all right, this works, that works, this doesn't work, and you're getting the reaction of the crowd to where you're kind of getting an understanding, all right, this is how things go, this is how things work, and then you go from that to just no fans, nothing, nobody. And you're just doing it, in the Thunderdome, and there's no real reactions. There's nothing that's really, an indicator for him to know whether he's doing right or wrong, because like I said with the stand-up comedian, if they're playing a laugh track, you don't know how good you're doing. And in WWE, if you're playing, boos and cheers from the crowd that's not there, whether you've got screens in the, in the Thunderdome or not, I don't think that helped Dominik Mysterio, because the only thing in that time frame that really, made me sit up and notice was his feud with Seth Rollins leading into that year in 2020 of that year's SummerSlam, where, Seth Rollins beat him with the kendo stick and had all the marks all over Dominik's chest. And it was a great angle. And that was, like I said, the only time I really, gave a damn about Dominik as a babyface, and that hurting. Then they win the tag team titles, him and his father, and they are the first, tag team champion father and son duo to do that. So that was a feather in his cap at a very young age. He's only 26 now as of this recording, but I mean, he was a couple years younger. So I mean, he had some success, but it was more because of who he was, the storyline, and it made sense at that time. So it was good for him, but he still had no identity. He still had no personality. He was still just Rey Mysterio's son, and I think that hurt him. Then we get over to Clash in the Castle in 2022, and Dominik finally shows a little bit of personality as he turns on Edge, and he turns on his father at the end of the match that Edge and Rey Mysterio had with Judgment Day. And Rey Mysterio was quite unhappy with the situation, I would think, because his son had been there with him the entire time as a team, and then he turns on him, and it just created that dynamic that I think Dominik needed in that moment, because he had been so bland, he had been so vanilla, and just nondescript. He's just Rey Mysterio's son for the longest, and now this happens at Clash at the Castle, and Dominik Mysterio finally joins Judgment Day, and he finally starts to take off, grows out that mullet, which I think is an incredible mullet, and we were off to the races. Then they had a little bit of the infighting with the family, and Dominik goes to prison, and then he becomes Condom and all that stuff, to where it finally, all this stuff I've been saying about how boring he was as a character, all got washed away with this whole him going to prison angle, and the storyline with him and his family and his father, and all the stuff that led into WrestleMania last year. And it was just all the stuff that he has done since has been great stuff. And I think that a lot of the stuff that Dominik Mysterio has done since the turn at Clash at the Castle has been brilliant. Now, I look at this and I get into the whole thing where he finally started getting organic heat, and the fans would just boo him out of the building. And it was awesome, because he had finally gotten to that point where the fans cared, because for the longest time he would come out, and when he was a baby face, yeah, they'd cheer because his dad was standing next to him. Like when the matches he had, he never really stood out. It was more about his dad and him learning, and you could tell, I mean, obviously he was at the beginning stages, so we didn't expect him to set the world on fire. But in that same breath, I would figure they'd give him more character than they gave him in the beginning. Now we go into, like I said, with all the stuff with the Judgment Day he's been doing has been gold. My only problem that they're doing with him now is just how they pipe in the noise and pipe in the boos, because the fans are booing anyway. I don't understand why you would add something extra that you don't need to add, because Dominik is getting over on his own finally, and the whole thing with him and Rhea, and just the whole dynamic with Judgment Day as a whole, because at first he was kind of just the goofy clown with Judgment Day, to where they kind of knew he couldn't wrestle, and they protected him in a way. Now he's gotten to the point where he is believable in the ring. Do I think he's going to win most of his matches? No. But it's not like I'm so worried, like, okay, is he going to screw up, or is he going to forget a spot, or is there going to be something that doesn't look right? Dominik Mysterio in ring has finally gotten to that point where I don't think about that stuff with him. I know his matches are going to be entertaining. He's going to be that sniveling, cowering, running around, trying to get away type of heel. He's going to be that cowardly, type that's always trying to find a way to sneak up on you. And that's the perfect kind of heel that he needs to be. And it's a great character for him. Then he won 2 NXT North American Championships, which just further added to his cachet and his believability. And I think it was another masterstroke by Triple H by sending him down to NXT, because he still needed a little bit of polishing. He still does, obviously, but I think he needed that little bit more seasoning, a little bit more in-ring time, a little bit more camera time, because in Judgment Day, he's a part of the group. But when he went down to NXT, he was actually getting more individual work. He was doing more individual stuff on his own, by himself. Yeah, of course, Judgment Day would get involved in his matches, but he was doing stuff by himself as opposed to being a part of a tag team or doing stuff where they're always attacking everybody. This was a situation where he went down to NXT and he did all the stuff on his own. He was down there by himself. Like I said, yeah, they interfered, but I'm saying this was a moment for him to shine, is my point. And I love just the evolution and how he has evolved as a character, because like I said, he was the blandest guy you could ever see, on the main roster. And then he turned and went heel, and he's been gold ever since. But what do you guys think in the comments? Let me know what you guys think. Are you happy with how they've done Dominik Mysterio? Because as a babyface, it just wasn't working for me. But before I get off of here, make sure you also subscribe to my other podcast, the Mark and the Fan Wrestling Podcast, where me and my boy Cisco Kid, we talk about all things wrestling, back in the day, present day, AEW, WWE, you name it, we talk about it. Please make sure you subscribe to that channel, and also subscribe to this channel. Numbers keep growing. I appreciate all you guys watching and commenting and liking and everything you do. But just please, if you haven't subscribed already, because I look at all my analytics and I see, a lot of people watch, but they're not subscribed. Just take the time, hit the subscribe, hit the notification icon, hit that like, and also make sure you comment in each one of these videos to just help me out a little bit. But anyway, I appreciate you guys. This has been another edition of the Magnum Report. Thank you for watching.